Recently, we talked about growing medical marijuana within Washington County. Well, it looks like the City Council will approve growing medical marijuana inside the city limits of Hagerstown. Bob, as a former mayor of the city, what's your take on this?
You know, it's, I believe that it is a worthwhile endeavor. I believe that some of the fear that some people may have on the council today is unfounded, which is that, oh my God, it's going to turn into, pot heaven around Hagerstown. I mean, face it, it's already heroin heaven.
Right.
But it won't be pot heaven. But, I mean, it's the state of Maryland passed a law to allow medical marijuana facilities.
Right.
So, okay, it's the state law that we can do that. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, another council member's opinion that he feels that it's against his oath of office because he swears to uphold the Constitution of the United States. But in that same oath, he also swears to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Maryland. And it ends with, and the laws of this state.
Right, and to be fair, I don't think there's anything in the Constitution of the United States about marijuana being legal.
I have never read anything there yet.
So, and I'm very much with you on this topic. I mean, my take on this is not from a criminal justice approach or from even a drug policy approach. It's bringing well-paying jobs into Hagerstown, which is
economic development. And Penny Nye and her comments about that's what people said about the prisons. Now look at the city of Hagerstown. Well, unless she was alive in the 1800s when the first prison was built, now she may have been. Don't get me wrong, but if she was, then she heard that. If she wasn't alive in the 1800s when MCI was built, then she didn't hear that. Okay, so and granted, sure. I mean, there's been some fallout from the way prisoners were released.
But you know what? That's different. That's apples and oranges.
Of course, it's different.
This is a medical facility that is growing a medical drug.
And if they
forget
think
about
for
what
one second,
if somebody wanted to come in here and do some type of narcotic as part of a factory that was built in the city of Hagerstown, nobody would be complaining about it.
Well, and you're bringing up a good point. So Bob brought up heroin. We certainly have opiates being used in pharmaceuticals. So if somebody built a factory to make Oxycontin, nobody would be raising a fit.
That's my point.
It's a very similar issue.
This is a pharmaceutical type company that we're bringing in here. They're not going to be out. They're not going to be out on the street at night selling it.
And that was my point I was trying to make to you. You didn't let me interrupt you. It was, it's going to be a very secure facility. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's going to be protocols in place that's going to not allow for people to walk out with, a nickel bag or something like that.
It's going to be secure like any other medical facility, like any other facility that has protected content. I mean, Volvo doesn't want their people walking out with part of a transmission under their coat.
Of course.
We don't want this company isn't going to want people walking out with medical marijuana. Carl, you're quiet on this.
Grow it.
Grow it.
Grow it.
Now, if I may interject, I think there is a problem, however, which alludes back to some of the concerns that some of the council members have raised, which is that on a national level, we haven't dealt with this problem. So states are starting to legalize marijuana for medicinal purposes. However, according to federal law, it's a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no recognized medical benefit, which is ridiculous because we know it does have recognized medical benefits.
Yeah, for cancer
What?
patients
Here's the problem.
Are benefiting from it.
Here's
or
the
the kids who no longer have seizures.
That's not their purview. That's not their purview in deciding this law.
Well, you're right, it isn't. However, there is now a discrepancy between what states are enacting, which I think is in the purview of the states, and what the federal government sets forward. So the federal government has a responsibility to fix that.
To get on board.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they need.
Because they're not going
to get on board.
They're not going to be able to undo what has already changed at the state level.
No.
So they need to get out of the way, basically.
And quite frankly, and not to change the subject or not to expand the topic, but I don't know why they're not on board. I mean, you've got a Democratic president.
That's a very good question.
I wonder because I can't. If somebody was going to legalize this at the national level, I would assume it would be the Democrats and not the Republicans.
I would think so too. But I think
the president doesn't make laws, though.
No, he
I
doesn't.
understand
No, he
that,
doesn't.
but well, that's true. You don't have a Democratic
Well,
Congress.
however,
No,
the,
you don't have
the,
a
the, the
Democratic Congress.
rescheduling from an FDA standpoint is definitely an executive function.
But the president has an ink pen and a phone.
That's
I don't
right.
understand.
and a
This not
problem,
been- this must not be.
if
rise
it
to the
becomes a
level of
congressional
importance.
item, then it's never going to get done because we can't seem to be able to get anything. The interesting part about, though, speaking of partisanship, if you look at the polls nationally, Republicans are every bit as much for relaxing the laws that we
Sure
have
they
in
are.
place as Democrats are,
Sure
because
they
it just doesn't
It
make any
makes
sense.
sense.
But
It
we
makes-
can't get the Democrats to go the same way with gun laws.
Well,
They don't want to relax any of them.
We'll
We're going to be talking about that
we'll
one
talk
later.
about that in a
I
little
was
bit,
just trying to
but
get some
a little bit of a
tease?
plug.
A
Yes.
little tease, okay.
a little heads up to everybody out there.
Well, I'll tell you what, from my perspective, good paying jobs are good paying jobs. And again, call it whatever they're manufacturing, this is a pharmaceutical facility of sorts.
Well, for once, the county is ahead of the city on something when it comes to economic development, which doesn't usually happen. I mean, they both move at a snail's pace, but the county and the planning commission has already approved the medical marijuana facility up
In Hancock,
So,
right.
yeah.
Which will be a coup for Hancock,
Yes.
in my
yes.
opinion.
Oh, I believe so too. Yeah. And you got the cheese factory opening back up there.
Right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Bunch of jobs in Hancock.
Any sort of economic development that we can bring into this area is always something that's going
And-
to
Yeah, Penny should be really happy because it's not a warehouse.
right.
I mean, because she's up in arms every time you talk about a warehouse.
Well, I mean, the reality of the matter is we have, there's not a lot of economic opportunity in this area for a large portion of the population. So again, anything that brings high-paying jobs that allows us to raise the
The people who are
medium
not
income.
extremely skilled at one thing or another.
Exactly. Is a good thing.
I mean, Procter & Gamble, unfortunately they're going to West Virginia, but they're going to pay decent wages, and that would have been a nice feather in their cap had we had that located here in Washington County.
Yes, it would.
But it didn't happen, so we can't dwell on that, although I will.
So what is the timing on all of this?
I don't even know. I mean, it's, I got to be honest with you, it has to go to the Planning Commission for the city of Hagerstown.
Okay.
So let's, I think we should wrap this topic up. And next up on the flip side, Bob will lead a discussion about the call from Maryland's neighboring states to adopt similar gun laws. Please stay tuned.